Well, good evening, everyone. We really are excited to present tonight, and I'm excited to see the turnout. We're going to start here with a little bit of information. Obviously, Lorna Gilmore, who's a family partnership specialist, who is a presenter and also helped coordinate and organize all of this great work. So I want to give a shout out to Lorna for continually doing that for families.
Thank you.
And I just want to make sure, is my screen showing there, Lorna?
Yes,
Okay, good.
but
Brief.
I'm unable to see the slide deck. You haven't started that yet?
Okay, let me see. This one. Let's stop it again and try to share it that way. Okay, share.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm not sure what
Mm.
happened there.
Is there any way you can put it in the slide deck presentation format or just make it bigger?
Yeah, I think for some reason it's not like in, just give me 1 second to see if I can troubleshoot this. I'm gonna download it. Okay, now I'm gonna try to do screen share Keynote. And two. Okay, can you see the whole presentation that way?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, of course. A brief introduction. My name is Jordan Frost. I graduated from Washington State University, both bachelor's and master's, currently in the district athletics and activities director role. This is my 6th year in the district. Previously, I was at our district office in a different role, and then also worked at Issaquah High School as a teacher, activity coordinator, and athletic director. So our objective for tonight is to be able to help parents and or caregivers learn more about participating in athletics and activities in our district. And we also want to provide you with some resources on where you can learn more information if you have questions after today. So our vision as a department is really focused on a few core tenets. We believe in a transformational education-based program. So we're really different from the college level, different from the semi-pro level, but we're very focused on the education piece first, and then that feeds into athletics and activities. And we seek to provide positive experiences for students. We want them to build meaningful relationships with both their coaches, but also their teammates, and then even the people they compete against, and for them to develop skills for life. So we have a strong emphasis on what they learn in their sport or their club, they can carry into college, they can carry into career even. I wanted to show you kind of a big picture of how many students are actually involved. And if you combine all of our middle and high schools, there's over 11,000 students. And our athletic programs, about 4,900 students are participating in a sport last year. That number we know has grown already this coming year, but we have a heavy number of students that participate in sports right now. We have over 300 club opportunities. So when you think about all of our clubs and activities, we've got about 3,500 additional students that are participating in that. So just a very high percentage of students in our middle schools and high schools are participating in a club or a sport. 600 athletic contests, club events, and school events. So we have very active clubs, very active sports teams. We run about 300 plus field trips every single year. And then there's over 400 staff who serve as coaches and activity advisors. So this is a big overview, and we'll break this down a little longer, but This is all that we offer. So on the athletics side here on the left of the screen, you can see that we offer a wide variety of sport programs. Some of these we offer at middle school as well as the high school, and some we only offer at the high school level. A lot of the ways that we decide what we're going to offer, we try to look at student interest. We look at other schools around us, like will we have competition to play against? And then what sports have been adopted by the WIAA? What facilities do we have? That kind of helps guide what we do on that side. On the activity side, that's where we have a whole lot more options. Each of our high schools has over 100 clubs. And so students are able to start clubs anytime they want. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we have some general categories of activities for our students. We have our performing arts, which is typically associated with the class, civic engagement, career and technical education, which is also tied to classes like woodshop and DECA and robotics. We also have interest-based clubs that our students just come and say, we've got a group of people who want to be part of this. And then we have clubs that way. And we have cultural clubs. A lot of our students who want to celebrate their culture or learn more about other cultures can start different clubs based on their ethnic background or shared heritage. And then cheer and dance drill also count as an activity. All right, so this is one of our big umbrella terms that we use a lot, and it's a very important term because it drives all of our sports, all of our clubs, and every student activity. So at a really basic level, ASB stands for Associated Student Body. And that means it is a collection of all of the students in that school, and they serve as the official representatives of students at each school. The state does require ASBs to exist, and they do that so that they can make sure student money is managed by students and is only spent to benefit students. So ASB money that is collected from students is kept separate from the money that the district generates through taxes or other means of revenue, levies, and things like that. So the state is very particular in making sure that ASB dollars are spent only for the benefit of students, and students have to approve that. So our student body government at each school, they make all of the decisions for the activities in their for the entire student body. So expanding on that government, the ASB leadership at each school, we have both officers that are elected. So it's just like our elections that we have in our country. They go and they campaign. All of the students get to vote for that person. And then they also have appointed officers who don't have to do an election, but they can apply to serve in a leadership role. The process and eligibility is a little bit different by each school, but we have some core common things that we go by. And each school has one adult who is responsible for ASB and activities at their school. And they can go by the title of activities coordinator or ASB advisor. The leadership, they get to vote on the use of student money. And so this is a great leadership, career, future skill for students to have discussions about how do we spend our money wisely? How can we benefit the largest number of students? How do we manage a budget? So they get to set a budget each year. And they're making some pretty significant decisions using skills that will help them in their career or if they're to college. This is a very valuable experience for that. They also plan all of the school events. So assemblies, dances, any student activity, this leadership body gets to make those decisions. There's a lot of really important professional development that they go through. So they learn public speaking when they're speaking to their peers. They learn how to plan. They have to consider what are our dates? What are our conflicts? What's our budget for this event? How do we do paperwork to get a speaker? They're involved in budgeting, even some human resource functions when they're deciding about interviewing people for the class and then offering those opportunities to train throughout the school year. And it's a really great place to build leadership skills. So it can help students when they're applying for scholarships. They can talk about their ASB experiences and how that's helped them prepare. It can help with college applications, and it even can actually help them with job applications because they're learning skills that are transferable from ASB to their potential career whether that's a job they want to do now in high school or a job after. So when you sign up for school and you go back to school, they'll talk about an ASB fee. And what does that pay for? So students become ASB members automatically by enrolling in school. So your child has enrolled, they are represented by that body. However, to get full membership, they do have to pay a fee. And so what does full membership mean? Once you pay, it's $60 at our high school and then $35 at our middle school. And when they pay that fee, it allows them to join a sports team. So they can't join a sports team until they pay the ASB fee. It grants to support student clubs. They also use that money to upgrade student facilities and school improvement. So if a student has a project, an example, they want to purchase refillable water stations. The ASB could help provide money for that student who's passionate about sustainability to add more of those water fountains in their school. And additionally, the reason why we require it for sports is because we use that money to actually run the programs. So when referees come to officiate our games, the ticket takers at the games, and the different people who do jobs to support the game, that's what that money can support. Also, league dues. So the ASB money only goes to support student activities and clubs. It doesn't pay for staff who that the district pays for. Just again to emphasize what benefits. So once you purchase the ASB fee for your student, they can participate in sports and clubs. They also get free admission to all home sporting events or games and select events. So if your student buys an ASB and they want to go to a football game, a basketball game, any game that's at their school, they actually get in for free. And then let's say you have a student that goes to Skyline and they come to visit Issaquah, they would get a reduced price for having that ASB sticker. So you also get a benefit when you travel, and that is to any school in our league. So East Lake High School and Lake Washington School District or Bellevue High School, that gives a benefit there as well.
Jordan, I'm going to ask you one quick question. And the
Yes.
question is the ASB fee paid per year enrolled in high school or only once in ninth grade?
That's a great question. The ASB fee is per year. So every single year at the beginning of the year, you'll pay it that one time at the beginning of each year in order to continue to have eligibility for that following year. Great question. So a little bit, if you have a student who's interested in joining ASB leadership, what does that look like? So in the spring, usually around January, February, the school will put applications out. They try to do a really good job of telling everyone the applications are out. So I'd encourage you to look at your school bulletin. The schools will also make announcements. I know what's really popular now is ASB Instagram pages at the high school level. That's where they put a lot of information. So I'd encourage your student to follow those pages, but I also would encourage you as a parent, if you use that application, to follow that page as well. But you should be able to find it on the school bulletin, on the social media pages, in multiple places. I'll also show you a link to where you can contact the school's activities coordinator and they can help you. Your student has 3 options to join ASB leadership. So one is they can be an executive officer. And those executive officers, they make some higher level decisions. They do some of the deeper planning for things, and they have to run in a school-wide election. So this is where they have a campaign poster. They make a speech to the student body, usually through a video. And then they also have to do an interview typically with the ASB advisor. If your student wants to focus a little more on their class, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, they also have to run in a grade-wide election. So if your student wants to be the junior class treasurer, they would only campaign to students who will be juniors the following year. And then the leadership class is a way for your student to have the same skill development, the same leadership opportunities, but they don't have to go through an election. So they can apply. There's usually a written response, an interview, and then some type of activity. And then they can join the class and they get all the benefits of it. They just don't have to go through an election. And there's just a few differences in what they do on a day-to-day basis. And that was the end of our ASB section. The next portion is about athletics. So these are all of our sports that we offer in the district. This is the agenda that we're going to talk through each section in athletics. So I'm going to help you identify who you should talk to if you have questions, how to complete registration, the most important piece, what it costs to participate in a sport, physicals, our seasons and the dates, how to actually go and get on a team, and then some general expectations and transportation. So a really important place to start, if you want to know anything about getting involved in sports, each school has an athletics and activities coordinator or secretary who can answer a lot of your general questions. They can also help you register and connect online. So typically, if you go to the main office of the school and say, I'm looking for the athletic secretary, they can guide you to that person who can help with a lot of questions. Each school also has an athletics director that oversees the entire athletic program at that school. And they are more of the, after you've worked with the athletics and activities secretary or coordinator, that might be the next person that you interact with. We've developed an athletics page. So each school, and once you get this slide deck, you will notice that these are all hyperlinked. So you can click them and it can take you directly to this athletic page that has who's contact information and coaches' contacts. A brief note, if you have a student that attends Gibson Eck, they still do have access to sports and clubs. It would just be the high school they would attend if they weren't at Gibson Eck. So whatever your home boundary school is, and we can help you find that out, those Gibson Eck students also do have access, and we have many Gibson Eck students who do a sport for, say, Issaquah High School or for Skyline. They still do their classes at Gibson Eck, but then they go participate in their sport or club at their home high school. Our middle schools also have athletic programs. In this case, they don't have an athletics director, but the assistant principal at each middle school is your point of contact if you want to know anything about sports at the middle school level. And again, once you receive this slide deck, all of these are hyperlinked so that you can be able to go to your school and find out who to ask questions to. In general, there's 3 steps that you need to do if your student wants to participate in a sport. The first step is to sign up on Final Forms, and we'll talk about that a little more in a second. The second step is to have a physical on file. So you have to have gone to a physician and received the physical. And then the third is that all fees must be paid before your student comes to practice or tryouts. And this is something that oftentimes is not really clear. And so we're working on making it clearer this year. For example, football starts on the 21st of this month. That's just in a few days. Students can't come to football first unless they've paid everything. We don't assess the fee after, we assess it before. So that's one key thing to note. And on the other side of that, for a sport that cuts, we do offer refunds. If you pay the sports fee and your student doesn't make the team, we will refund you the sports fee. Okay, so when should you register? We do a pretty good job of opening up a lot of time for families to register. So every single year on May 15th, registration for the next school year opens up. So for this current school year that we're in, on May 15th, you were able to log in and register for any sport that your student wanted to do. And it's really important that you register because students cannot attend tryouts and turnouts if they have not done registration. Another link and resource we've provided for you is the registration website that has all of the dates for when registration is due. I can tell you now that a first registration date for football is tomorrow, but I will also share with you that we will leave football open, since it's not a cut sport, for 1 full week. So if you have a student who isn't quite sure, you still have some time to decide football is what you'd like to do. The next closing date is the 25th. So for all of our other fall sports, and we'll show a calendar here in just a second. Okay, so the registration piece is all online. If you've completed EVP, it's somewhat similar, but caregivers or parents and students have to log into Final Forms and sign forms. The really great thing about Final Forms is once you are enrolled in our district, Skyward will take some information over and create an account for you. So whether you've used it or not, everyone has an account that is at the from middle school to high school in our district. And we have to have all of these forms completed before a student can participate in a sport. This allows us to know some key information. It allows you to give us some permission for your student to do things like take a trip with their team. And there's also some key safety information in there as well. This screenshot is to give you a picture of what it will look like when you're in the Final Form system, and you will know you're done when everything is green. So what is Final Forms? How do you get there? This link is in the page. We also have a link to Final Forms on our athletic and activities pages as well. All students who have a Skyward account, as I mentioned, they have a Final Forms account. As a parent, you will be prompted to log in, create a password, and complete the steps. If for any reason you say, I haven't got an email, I'm not sure how to go there, your school can help you. It takes us no time. We encourage you to call us or email us, and we can help you get connected really fast. The athletic secretaries at each school are very skilled in quickly getting people connected to Final Forms. Also, at the middle school level, that's usually the bookkeeper who can help you connect to that. But we have no problem helping families connect to Final Forms. So how much does it cost if your student wants to do a sport? So students, the first piece, as I mentioned earlier, they have to have an ASB membership. So that was $60 at the high school, and I believe $40 at the middle school. The sports fee is $200 for a high school sport, and then $50 for a middle school sport. This money that is collected through the sports fee, so I'll recap, the ASB membership goes directly to students decided where they're funding. The sports fees actually go to the district office, and it mostly pays for buses. So when our teams travel, it pays for those buses, and then it pays the coaches of each sports team. One really important thing I want to mention here, in our high schools, we have 3 sports seasons: fall, winter, and spring. If your student decides they want to do 3 sports, you will not have to pay for the 3rd sport. So if you do 2 in a row, the 3rd sport is free. At our middle schools, this works the same, although our middle schools have 4 seasons. So if you do 3 middle school or 4 middle school sports, your 4th one will be free. I want to add a note here, and this is really focused on the high school. There are sometimes program costs that may vary depending on the team. Your coaches can provide you with this information. So an example would be the wrestling team. Oftentimes a wrestling team will go into different tournaments, and there are costs associated with that. And so the team will sometimes divide that cost by all of the members on the team, and then you'll be assessed a fee for that overnight stay. It's not guaranteed that there will be an additional fee, but we just want to add here that there may be another fee depending on what the program is doing. And so it's important to talk to the coach to know what the full cost is. Another high school note, In the off season, so once the team has played their full season and they're done, sometimes coaches will offer additional opportunities for students to develop their skills. So track and field and cross country will oftentimes do a winter conditioning program. And that is an opportunity for the students to stay fit, to stay in shape, and to develop their skills. These programs sometimes do have cost and sometimes they do not. So it's important that the head coaches, and they should be communicating proactively to you as families about when you join track or cross country, you have the opportunity to do an off-season activity. All right, we do have financial assistance to support families. The first and the largest bucket of where this happens is if a family qualifies for free and reduced lunch, then they will pay $0 for ASB membership and participation in a sport or club. So if, for example, if I had a student and if we qualified and if we were going to play football, we would pay $0 toward the $200 fee and then $0 for the ASB membership fee. A really important step, and I know Lorna does a lot of great work to help families with this. On the free and reduced lunch application, families must give consent to disclose in order for us to provide that benefit. The key is when you sign that form, you are saying, yes, you can share with, and it's usually one person at a school, you can share with this individual that my family has qualified, and then they can apply the $0 benefit to you. Now, a really important step in this, even though it is a $0 charge, you do still have to go into the pay online system and select purchase, but you will see that it will charge you $0. And so that sometimes is confusing for families. And so I want to clarify, you still have to buy that, but it will be a $0 charge. Now, if you're a family who does not qualify for free and reduced lunch, but you still may need some financial support, it's really important that you talk to your bookkeeper, counselor, or one of your administrators. So it could be a principal, an assistant principal. They're all prepared to be able to talk to families about ways that we can support. Ultimately, our goal is to have no financial barriers to participation. We believe that when students do a sport or a club, it enhances their entire well-being, their academics, their social, and their mental and emotional. So we want to provide pathways for participation. The next athletics component is physicals. So we have to have a current physical on file. And what the physical does is communicates to us from a medical professional that your student has no limitations to participate in athletics. And in order for us to accept it, it has to say fully cleared for participation or limited participation, and then they usually give us a note. So if a student had had a heart concern or a certain injury, the physical lets us know from a doctor it is okay for them to still play sports, even with a certain condition. We take them and they're good for 2 full years. So once you get your student's physical, you will not need to get another one for 2 full years. The important piece is the physical does have to be clear until the end of the sports season. So one example could be if the football season ends November 30th, your student's physical would have to be clear past that date of November 30th. It cannot expire before the season ends that they're participating in. A tip for parents, if you take an ISD physical form, and this is available in final forms, the school can also provide it to you with you to the doctor's appointment. So if you have a regularly scheduled doctor's appointment, sometimes you can take that form with you and get it completed all in one appointment. And potentially there could be a charge for completing the form. So confirm with your medical provider, but sometimes you can combine that appointment and get that all taken care of. As I mentioned, Final Forms does have this form available, but you can also get a print version from the school secretary. Our school nurses in our schools are prepared to help you find a provider if you're having trouble. So they're trained and to be able to help you navigate, and you just go in and say, I need a physical and I'm not sure where to go. The nurse at your school can help you absolutely. So when will you know you are done? Okay. When your student is green in final forms, you will have completed all of the requirements. If you're not sure, your athletic secretary or the athletic director are more than happy to help confirm that status with you. And this screenshot here below is from what a parent's view. So you can see in the top here, it's red in this whole area, and it says incomplete forms. That student is not ready to participate. But here at the bottom where it's green and says eligible, you would know that your student is eligible to be completed. Well, the great thing about Final Forms is you just click this incomplete forms button and it will take you exactly where you need to go to complete your students' forms. A little bit deeper into sports, we wanted to define some terms that are commonly used, but may not be universally understood. So when you hear the term varsity, we are talking about the highest level of sports competition at a school. That level will be where you have the most skilled and talented athletes. You're going to be playing against teams at other schools that are putting out their best and highest skilled students. So that is the very top level of competition in all of our schools. Junior varsity or JV is the middle ground. It's a moderate level of sports competition. And in some schools, some sports, it is still a high level of competition, but it's meant to prepare students for the varsity level. And then our C teams, this is a developmental team, and this is where students can grow their skills and prepare for JV varsity. I don't want to give you the impression that a C team is a lesser or lower team. Sometimes a certain sport can have such a large number of skilled students that there's only a certain amount of space on a varsity team. So if your student is assigned to a C team for more than 1 year, that does not necessarily mean they're not skilled or prepared. It just may sometimes mean that there's a lot of competition at the JV varsity level, and they need more time to develop until they get that opportunity. Our cut sports, so if you hear sports that have cuts or students being cut, this means that a student may not make the team after a tryout. So they have to go, perform, do some drills, and they may not be able to be on that team that year. Our intramurals are sports that are really for participation and development. I would say if you have a student who's a beginner or new to sports and just wants to try something, at the middle school level, intramural is a great place to start. When we use the term tryout, this again is when a student has to come to a designated time and space. They have to demonstrate their skills, usually over the course of 2 or more days. And then a turnout means that you will not be cut. So any student that comes to a sport that has turnouts versus tryouts, they will make it. One example is football. Every student who wants to be on the football team, 100% can be on the team. We do not cut students from football. Other sports that we do not cut from, and I have a list later on, but swim is another example, as well as cross country. So this is a little more of an expansion, and I want to just talk about a few pieces when we talk about cut sports. So students have to qualify based on skill. The important piece is that the skill is determined by the school coach of that team. It is appropriate for you as a parent, but they might ask your student to ask first, to ask a coach before tryouts, what skills will be assessed and how can I prepare for tryouts? And all of our coaches are prepped to be able to explain to you or a student what skills they're going to be looking for, and then how your student can practice to be ready for the tryout. Another key thing is that cuts are final and they cannot be overturned unless there is a legitimate claim of an unfair process or evaluation. So typically, once a cut has been made, that is the final decision. If you as a parent or a student feels that there was a unfair part of the process or unfair evaluation, you would then work through the coach, the athletic director, and then at the highest level, they would reach out to me, and then we would go through a due process of evaluating the tryout. Intramurals, so again, this is at our middle school level. If your student has not played a lot of sports and is just wanting to try something and make new friends, intramurals are a great option for you to consider. There's no competing, and they will not travel against other schools. So if you play on the boys soccer team at Pine Lake, you will travel to Beaver Lake, to Maywood, to Cougar Mountain. But if you are on the intramural boys soccer team, you will only compete against students at your school. This is really designed to give new students a chance to develop skills in a sport, to try a sport out and see if they like it, without a high level of commitment and opportunity. Intramurals also are at a lower cost, so your schools will have information about what that cost is. And that is another way to say, we're just trying to try a new program and not fully jump in. Okay, so our high schools, sports by season. So I'll walk through this. Our fall season is our very first season, which, as I mentioned, starts tomorrow for football. When you look at our cut sports, meaning your student's going to come, they're going to do some drills, but they may not make the team. We have girls soccer, which starts next week, girls volleyball, boys tennis, and boys golf. These are all sports that might cut students depending on their skill level, how many students come out, and what the range of skills are. The sports that are no cut, meaning all students that want to do it will be accepted, are football, which starts on Wednesday, cross country, and girls swimming. A note here that our cross country team is co-ed, meaning boys and girls participate on the same season. In their playoffs, they're separated, so they have different squads, but overall, we don't divide them by gender in the first season. When we move to the winter, this is November start and February end, boys and girls basketball in high school are cut. So this means students may or may not make that team. And then for no cut sports, we have wrestling, which is co-ed. So girls and boys can both wrestle. Oftentimes we have a separate girls schedule where they wrestle against girls at other schools, and then our boys wrestle against other boys at other schools. We also do boys swimming in the winter. And then a new sport for us will be girls flag football. And that will not be a cut sport in the winter time. Finally, for high school in the spring, February through June, we have boys baseball, girls fast pitch or softball, girls tennis, and girls golf, which are sports that can cut. And then no cut sports in the spring are track and field and girls badminton, which is also a new sport to Issaquah. I will tell you a few tips. Typically, our tennis and golf teams, depending on the number of students, they may or may not cut. This is also true for girls fast pitch and sometimes boys baseball. Sports where there's typically always a cut is soccer, and I apologize because I have forgotten a sport on this list. We do have boys soccer in the spring for high school. But our soccer teams and basketball teams, and additionally volleyball, typically do cut. What's really important to know, if your student in high school is cut from one of these sports on the top, we still will allow them to go do one of these sports that accepts all students. So if you have a daughter who goes out for volleyball, and if she's cut from volleyball, she still has time to go and participate in cross country or girl swimming. And we'll simply transfer her fee over to the sport, and all of the paperwork transfers too. So you don't have to do new paperwork. You don't have to pay a new fee. You simply will notify the school or the coach that your student was cut, and now they're going to go do swimming. And this works the same in the winter. So if you have a boys basketball player who doesn't make that team, he can go be on the wrestling team or the boys swimming team. Likewise, in the spring, your student can participate in track and field, or if they don't make girls tennis, they can do badminton. All right, our middle school sports. So we actually have 4 seasons in middle school. They are shorter than our high school seasons. So the cut sports in season 1 for our middle schools are boys soccer and girls volleyball. No cut means all students are accepted will be cross country. I'm going to save the intramurals because I want to talk about that in just a second, how that will look different. So I'll continue with cut, no cut. Season 2, we have girls basketball. We have wrestling for no cut. And season 3, we have girls soccer and boys basketball. And then in season 4, we have track and field. Now, a note for intramurals, it's really important that your student is paying attention to the information shared by their school and the bulletins. I know we're going to have some back to school nights and orientations, or they call them different things, maybe Bulldog Day or something like that. That is when they will share information about intramurals. Each school might run a different intramural. So Maywood might have an intramural flag football team, and Pine Lake might run an intramural soccer team. So it's very important that if your student is interested in intramurals at all, to talk to your assistant principal, talk to your bookkeeper, but they will also be sharing information with you through the school bulletin, through school announcements, and different communication channels that they use at the middle school level.
Jordan, sorry to interrupt again. I think there's a clarification. A couple people are asking about this. The question is, if a student is cut from the boys soccer varsity JV, do they still have time to register for the intramural soccer?
Yes, that's good. So my suggestion would be, in final forms, sign up for both. The paperwork that you do for boys soccer will transfer to boys intramural soccer. So you should sign up for both programs. And then if you make the cut team, it's really easy for the school to click you out of the intramural program, or vice versa. So if you end up being cut, you just stay in that team. So that's a very easy school side thing to make. So I always tell families, sign up for every program that you might want to do, and then we will help adjust on the back side of that. That's a great question, but there is time to make the switch if a student is cut. Absolutely. Okay, some really general basic expectations. Each coach, when you make a team or turn out for a team, they will share some detailed expectations, but this is some high-level district expectations. The first is that we do expect that your student goes to all practices and games during the season. This becomes very important at the high school varsity level. A calendar will be given by the coach at the start of the season, and sometimes this does include games during school breaks. The reason for that is we only have a certain amount of time that the state sets for when we can play our games. And so typically, like baseball and fast pitch in high school, they do have games over spring break. Basketball oftentimes will have games over winter break. So it's important for your family to have conversations about what does that look like, what commitment can you make, and then deciding on which program is the best fit for you. It's also really important that parents and caregivers accept a coach's decision on playing time, so how much your student participates in the game planning, and then end-game decisions. So we trust, and we're giving our coaches the ability to say, here's how much each student will play. Here's the plays I will call. Here's when I will call timeout. And we expect that. If a parent has a concern about their individual student, we do have a process for that communication, but we won't go into that detail tonight. If you have a follow-up question, I would be more than happy to talk to you about that. And then additionally, especially at the high school level, there is an expectation that students are continuing in the summer and off season to keep developing. This doesn't mean that you have to go to every activity that the school coach plans. It just means that you're continuing in some way to develop and grow in your skill set. We encourage families to take time off, take vacation, do all the things that you want to do, and then also think about what are ways that you can continue to develop and grow in the sport. Transportation for our sports programs. We as a district will provide a bus to most contests that are not at the school. So when Skyline goes to play North Creek High School, we will typically provide a bus. There are some cases where the team may decide to self-transport, which means that each family and student would be responsible for getting to the game, but coaches will communicate that in advance, well in advance. We do expect, though, that if we provide a bus to the game, we will also take your student back to the school. So our communication to you is that we are responsible for ensuring that your student makes it to the other school and then also makes it home. If you go to the game, let's say you drive away to the game at Newport High School, as long as you notify the coach that you check your student out, then you can drive your student home and you don't have to follow the bus back to the school. But we do make sure that you communicate that and document that, because during that evening event, the district is responsible for your student getting to the game and then getting back to the school safely. If you want, let's say you have a loved one in the area or a close family friend, and you can't drive your student home, but you want to authorize another parent or caregiver or friend to do so, you must sign paperwork that is available in the athletics office. We will not release your student to someone that we do not know that you have given permission to take your student home. So that's really important to us. For our middle school students, we schedule those games so that your students can take the after-school activity bus. And I'll talk about that a little later, how you can find that out. But your front office can help you locate the activity bus as well. And that concludes our sports overview for our school district athletics. The last section of the night is talking about clubs and activities in our district. Similar to how each high school has an athletic director, each high school also has an activities coordinator, and they can help you with all of your questions that you have. This is also sometimes the same person that's the athletic secretary. So that's a really important thing to remember. Your athletic secretary can help you with clubs too. Each school also has an activities coordinator or ASB advisor, who is the responsible adult in the building for the clubs and activities program. And below here, once you receive these slides, if you click this link, it will take you directly to who to contact. You can also find a list of clubs on this website. I would say for the beginning of the year, give it some time because new clubs are being formed. So this list might not be up to date right away, but if you wait until about September, October, that will be public. Your students also will have a chance during the school day to go to a clubs fair where they can visit all the different clubs that are available. And your school will communicate this and schedule this to you and to your student. For our middle schools, similar to high school or similar to middle school sports, the assistant principal at the middle school can answer your questions about clubs. So the websites listed here will have our middle school club list, as well as the contact point for that person or for that school. So there's two ways that your students can be in a club. And if you remember earlier, there's a lot of different categories of clubs. The first way is your student can join an existing club. All they have to do is go to the meeting. They don't have to fill out an application. They don't need to register on a large website. They simply just have to go to the meeting, and then they can say, I want to be in this club. Our schools do a good job on their website of posting their clubs. All of our clubs now, it seems, have a social media, Instagram page. And then we also have bulletin boards in each school. And hopefully when you go through the school for curriculum night or orientation, you'll see this. The clubs are posted. We also have the chance in the Issaquah School District for your student to start their own club. And this can be for anything that they are interested in, okay? Each school has a slightly different process for applying, but in general, your student must have 5 other kids who are interested. They have to find an advisor, and then there's some paperwork that they have to complete. And I want to take you back briefly to these slides. So when you get these, the activities coordinator at each school can help your student start a club. So just always go back to this site, look for the activities coordinator, and they can help with that. There are deadlines though. So it's really important if your student wants their club to start at a certain time, that they talk to the ASB advisor or activities coordinator to know the process at each school. And students must have an ASB purchased membership to participate in a club. We also have cheer and dance programs in our school. And I've given them their own unique slide because they're classified as an activity, but they operate very much like our sports teams. So they go to local, state, and even national competitions, but they also operate like clubs because they're year-long. What is really important to know is that at all of our high schools, cheer and dance are cut programs, meaning every student who wants to participate may not have the opportunity to participate. It's based on skills, it's based on experience, and they have to go and perform during a audition in the spring every single year. So that's really important. Students have a choice though. We have a sideline program, which means they are participating at assemblies, games, and events. And sometimes the sideline program is a little less competitive. Then we also have a competition program. And I don't say less competitive to mean it's easier. It's just different in what your student will be doing. So when you think about a competition team, very similar to sports, where they may go to Eastlake High School, Redmond High School, and they will compete against those schools. Your student does not have to pay the $200 sports fee for cheer and dance, but there are costs associated with cheer or dance. It's very important that you talk to the coach. These programs are a more significant financial obligation than our other school sports. This is because they have specific uniforms for different seasons and different competitions. Dance, for example, and drill. So if you're a Liberty family, you might hear drill. They have a different style of clothing for different events that they're participating in. But you do have to have an ASB membership. And transportation for clubs and activities. There is an after-school bus available for some. And when you receive these slides, the activity bus route link can help you find out exactly which bus for your school and which time. And that is the conclusion of the formal presentation. And I know Lorna is going to lead us through some questions and answer.
And Jordan, before we start that, would you mind going to one of the high schools and then one of the middle schools and show families where they can find the athletic director's name, contacts, and also the club times and so forth? There are many questions in
Yeah,
the registration form about that, so it'd be best to just show them visually.
that sounds good. Let me switch over.
36 has a link to the schools.
Yeah. So I'm going to situate people to our home athletics activity site because I think that's a great landing place. So if you're on our district website, you can see here at the top, we have all these categories. The programs and services tab is where you can find athletics and activities. So it's the first option alphabetically there. So on this page, you can see my contact information on the right. And then we continually talked throughout this evening about registering for sports and final forms. What we've done is at the very top, we put a link to final forms right here so that if you want to register for a sport, you don't have to scroll very far. You can click this link. We've also talked about buying ASB and we've talked about buying a sports fee. So the pay online system button is right next to the final forms button. So once you get to athletics and activities, we'll help you quickly register and then pay. We also have associated student body. Now, when we talk about clubs and activities, when you click this tab, you'll see all of the schools show up here. And this allows you, and I'll do, for example, Pine Lake. And it takes me directly to Pine Lake's activities page. And you can see right here, it says if you want to start a club, pick up a packet from Debbie Raposa, who is the ASB athletic secretary. We also talked about activity bus schedule. So on the very first page, you can see right here, there's that schedule. And then in this section, you're going to want to click clubs, and you will see all of the clubs that are at Pine Lake. And what's really nice is if you can click this button, it will tell you exactly what the club is about, when they meet and where, and then which teacher you need to talk to find out more information. And they've linked the teacher's email, so you click their name and it will automatically start an email for you. So this is what our middle school pages look like. I'll go back to the landing page. So for our high school programs, if you click contacts on the very front, you will see all of the individuals by school who you can reach out to. I talked a lot about the athletic activity secretary. That's the second person here in this category. They can help you with everything from paying for the sport, registering for the sport, finding out more information about a club as well. So that's right here on the front. Another great resource on this page, if you click registration, this will tell you what you need to know about actually signing up for the sport program. So what I explained tonight is written out here. So if you'd like to go and look at the steps, you can see the information is there. And those are the 3 steps that we talked about today. If I go back here to the main homepage again, right here below registration, you have sports seasons. And this is a really helpful resource for knowing when you need to sign up and by what date. I want to call your attention to late registration date. This means what is the last possible. So we talked about football. Their registration actually closes tomorrow, but the last possible day you can participate in football is August 28th. And the athletic secretary can help you with that.
Jordan, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about off season? Where would a question asked by a parent is, what's the off season for soccer?
Okay,
So
great question. So I'm going to take us back to the home page and I'm going to pick one of our high schools. So I'm going to pick Issaquah High School. This is Issaquah High School's athletics page. And if you select, let me go to who's who. So I did that kind of fast. I'll go back. This is the homepage for Issaquah High School athletics. On this right side, you'll see a who's who, contact us. And this is where each team, so the head coach of the team, if you select their name, it will generate an email. I recommend, if you want to know about off-season programs, the best step that you can take is to email the head coach, because sometimes it changes each year, but the coaches always know what the off-season program is, and they love to engage with families about skill development. Some of our programs have websites. So let me go back to that in case I did it too fast. So on the Who's Who contact page, if you select the sport, it will lead you to the team page, and you can see they have all the information about tryouts, which are coming up, registration, any events that the team is doing. And this is another great place where you can find out information. They have a calendar as well. And so you actually, if I go back, I might have to go back further in the season, but they have a calendar here. You can see they have tryouts selected, some programming that's going on also, and then they have all their games here. So the Who's Who page on each school, you can either contact the coach directly or select this. Select this sport.
And Jordan, that answered two of the parent questions. One question was, who do I contact to find out about joining wrestling or golf? So you'd go to the Who's Who column.
Yep.
And another question was, who is the athletic director of Skyline High School? And you also answered that question by showing this document. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we talked about the off season. And then a question came up, can middle schoolers join girls badminton, which is a high school sport?
Unfortunately, middle schools are not able to participate in a high school sport. However, if you have a middle school student who has interest in badminton, my recommendation is for them to tell their assistant principal, because badminton can be offered as an intramural sport at a middle school. So it is possible for them to participate in that. They just need to let their assistant principal know, and they can coordinate that.
Okay. Another question came up was, when you the quote was, register by 9/9/24 for boys soccer. And so the question asked was, does that mean you just make sure we have the boys soccer check marked on final forms, or is there another website where we also have to register in addition?
Good question. There's no other website you have to go to. So when you click this link and log into Final Forms and you select boys soccer, you'll have to complete all the forms in there, but that is the only place that you need to register for boys soccer. Yes, just one site.
Perfect. And then another question that came up was, is there a fee for middle school intramural sports?
Yes, the fee for middle school intramural sports is $20.
Jordan, can you also remind us, for a sixth grader entering this year, if the physical was in December 2023, is it valid?
December of 2023. Yes, for an incoming sixth grader, that is good until December of this 2025. So it carries for 2 full years.
Okay, thank you. Another question coming up is, I filled the final forms for my child and selected the sports for each semester. At the end, it said he needed to sign some documents via email, but he doesn't have his email access yet. I noted that there was some deadlines which have passed when I was looking for fall sports. Will this be an issue?
Did you say that was a middle school student, Lorna?
I don't think it is, because it said semester, so I believe this was a high school student.
Okay,
It didn't clarify the question.
If that's a high school student, one of the things we've noticed is that families that are returning, they have to complete EVP first before they have access to their student email. And that was happening quite a bit. So if that is your student, I would say make sure you finished EVP, and then your student will be able to log into their email and complete the forms. If your student is interested in doing football, for example, the best thing I can recommend is for your student to either contact. So I'm going to go here to contacts on this main page. And this second line, the facilities, athletics, activities coordinator, wherever your student is. So if they're at Liberty, Susan is the person to contact. She can check and confirm your student's access, and she can help you navigate that, whichever school you're at.
Thank you, Jordan. So this
Mhm.
parent said, we just moved to the district and an incoming ninth grader wants to try out for volleyball at Skyline. They finished the final forms, but they wanted to learn about where the tryouts are and what
Mhm.
she should bring. And I assume that's where you showed who to contact, showed the
Yep.
list of the different
So I'm just
sports,
going to
and they can.
navigate here. So I'm going to go again. I'm at the main page. I'm going to click contacts and find Skyline. I'm going to click Skyline. And that takes me directly to Skyline High School Athletics. I'm going to select who's who. And you can see volleyball. Eduardo Guerrero is the head coach. So you can click his name and send him an email and ask that information. I will tell you another place where you can find out tryout information is the athletic coordinator. So here on the right, also known as the athletic secretary. So Carrie Bunch can also tell you when the tryouts are. So you have two options, the coach here or the athletic coordinator.
Okay. This is a great question. I think we just made an assumption that the parents knew that. Is the sports and clubs during the school day, school hours, or after school?
That is a great question. All of our clubs and sports are, let me clarify. All clubs meet after school. Okay. Typically, they're going to meet right after school. Sports, for the majority, are after school. There are some situations in some sports where a student may have to leave school a little early, but it will never be the whole day. So, for example, golf. Our students have to do golf at a course because we don't have courses at our schools. So they might leave school a little bit early, but all of our programs, practices, games are after the school day. And for the high school sports, sometimes they're later in the evening. Football is a great example of a sport that starts later in the evening, or volleyball. Middle schools, we keep those times closer to the end of the school day. Good question.
Okay. And then another question coming up is, do intramural sports require physicals too?
Yes.
And do they practice every day like regular sports teams?
No. Intramural sports will practice at a lower frequency of less times in each week, and they'll have less games, and their season is shorter. So that's a really important thing to note, is that intramural, the season is shorter than a regular sports season. Good
So one of
question.
the Sorry, Jordan. So one of the questions that keeps on coming up in the registration form and in the chat is, do the sports practice time overlap with club times? And does that mean that a student doing sports can't be in clubs?
So we do sometimes have a situation where a sports time competes with the club time. And I will say at the middle school level, something that we've done is when sports teams have games, we will alternate the time. So one night, the varsity will play first and the JV will play second. So that if a student is on a JV team, maybe they have time to go to their club first and then go to their sports game. At the high school level, I will say we have many students who are heavily involved in, an example is DECA. They can be involved in DECA and they also do soccer. Sometimes there are conflicts. Our students and our coaches and advisors are really good about working through those conflicts. So it is possible that the practice times and things will conflict. But I would also say our practices, our club meetings are usually earlier in the day because teachers are leading them, so they don't want to stay all night. but our coaches oftentimes will have practices later in the day. So sometimes a student can go to school, have a little bit of time for study or homework, go to their club meeting, and then either practice will be right after, or they may have an hour or two before practice. And that's when we encourage students, they can stay at the school and they can do homework and do some studying before they go to their sports practice.
Thank you, Jordan.
Mhm.
I think this parent has some questions around the ASB leadership program. The question is, can we apply for all three of them? The ASB class, being a leader, and says lesson. So I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have intentionally set up the ASB program to where if a student runs for the executive level, they have elections for the class level after. So let's say they don't win for school president, they can still run for junior class president. And then if they don't win that, they still can apply for the community for students to have each level, to try each level. And we've made the applications timing really well so that a student can be involved if they want to be involved. Good
And
question.
that's mainly at the high school level. And in the
Yes.
middle
Yeah.
school, they don't have as many
Yeah, middle schools don't
conflicts.
have as many levels of involvement and they don't have as many officers as well. So that's mainly a high school specific answer.
So we have a parent whose child wants to do swimming in middle school. Is that possible?
Unfortunately, we do not offer swimming at our middle schools.
Okay. And a parent is unable to see intramural sports fees in the fee portal. Um,
Oh, good. Yeah, I can explain that. So the way our middle schools run their finance, they actually charge you after. So our middle school programs are run a little bit different than high school. The middle schools will charge you after you are already on the team. For their staff, it works better for them to bill you, so to speak. And so that's why you don't see fees yet in middle school. You will not see those until your student is officially on a team.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I actually didn't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the next one is, can you talk about how much commitment it is for a middle schooler to participate in a sport and the level of difference between, let's say, intramural versus a competitive team?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So typically, our middle schools are going to have about a game per week, and that varies some, but in general, that's what we do. There's a lesser commitment from an intramural participation than an actual a sport program. So if you do boys soccer, you are committing to about 3 or so days of practice a week. And then if you're doing intramural, you might see less frequency of practices per week, especially because you're not playing games against other schools. The other change in that is that a intramural practice might be shorter and the season is shorter. So it's really important to notice that piece as well, that you look at a shorter practice, less practices and games, and then a shorter season if you're in an intramural. Our middle schools are somewhat developmental for our high schools. So it starts to be a ramp up for engagement in the high school program, which is typically a very high time commitment. Often every day of the week at high school, you're doing something in a sport. In our middle schools, it's not quite there yet. And there's more flexibility on the middle school. Typically, if you want to do a club, there's some switching that you can do between club this day, sport that day, and intramural. That is also much simpler.
Thank you, Jordan. Couple questions. Parents have asked about when will the websites be updated because they're looking for the coach information for their middle school boys soccer team. I'm guessing it's both for Maywood Middle School. Do you have
Mhm.
an idea on when the websites will be updated with this information?
Yeah, so what I would say for the middle schools is really focus your communication to the assistant principal. The reason why is our middle schools, we have a bit of a more challenge hiring coaches. And so sometimes at the middle school level, we're not certain who the coach will be until closer to the start of the season. So the best choice for middle school is to contact the assistant principal in all situations. The high school, that's a little more closer to accurate. There's still some hiring going on sometimes, but our middle school hiring is a little more challenging. And so those websites don't stay as up to date, but the assistant principal contact should be up to date.
Wonderful. Another question here is there an overlap between the games for sports and band and orchestra concerts in the evening?
So badminton is a new sport for us, and so we'll have to figure out what that schedule looks like. There is a potential that there could be an overlap depending on how early, how late the concert is. And so sometimes students do at the high school level have to start to make some difficult choices. I will say though, because badminton is not a cut sport and there's some variation, you may be able to work with the coach on a very limited basis if you have something like an orchestra concert to attend. But there are some sporting events that we will have a play or music performance on the same night of a game. So that does happen, that conflict does come up.
Okay, thank you. Another question coming in. Sorry. I scrolled all the way up and I lost it. It's a lot about conflict between outside soccer teams and school
Mhm.
teams.
Yep.
Um,
So that comes up, and the state actually has rules about how many times a student can miss their school team or a private team. So what we often say, and this is not a perfect science, sometimes the club teams will stop operating during the high school season so that students can participate in their high school team. Sometimes students do both at the same time. So this is very much a family decision that has to be made, and families have to have conversations with each other, with the coaches of the club and the high school team, and figure out what's going to work best for your family. I've seen some students be able to do both at the same time. I've seen others have to make a difficult choice. So that's where there's a lot of reaching out to the coach, finding out the schedule, finding out the commitment. Our coaches are great about talking through with your family all of the different varieties. We have very experienced coaches in our district, particularly with soccer at the high school level. And so they can help you navigate club commitments and school commitments for sure.
and the parent clarified that he wasn't questioning about badminton, but just middle school sports in general.
Mm.
And middle school sports are right after school, and so that doesn't conflict with concerts for
Oh,
band
good.
and orchestra, so that won't be a
Correct.
problem.
Yep.
Also, another question here is how many practices each week for swimming team and IHS? And would you say that that's something that we should ask the coach?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say if you have a specific question about how many practices, what time, the coach is the best person to talk to. And I do know that the Issaquah swim team, so if you go to the school page, I'll just navigate here as an example again. The school page, and you go to who's who. The swim team does have information about their meets, and then they actually have their practice schedule here in this calendar. So you can see, like next week, they're practicing every day. Sometimes it's at 8 a.m., sometimes at 3:30. And then in September, you can see their practices and so on and so forth. But it's still a great idea to contact the coach who can help you learn more about the practice dates and times.
So this parent is saying that my upcoming middle schooler likes to focus on one particular game, soccer,
Mhm.
at all seasons, but I have seen that soccer is mentioned in one of the seasons. Is there any way for him to focus on this game alone?
So at At the clarifying, you said middle school student?
Yes.
Yeah, so at the middle school level for the school program, it's just one season in the fall. At the high school level, there's a lot more opportunities for summer and off-season work, but we really limit the school program. If your student wanted to do soccer year-round, that's when they would participate in a local club. So it depends on which high school feeder area, and then do the school season when they're not doing club. So there is a way to do that, but not through the school. Most of our programs have some, that's when we talk about off season. I'll give you an example, cross country at the high school level. Cross country has a summer program. They have season in the fall, they do winter conditioning. A lot of those students do track and then summer again. So at the high school level, you start to see that ramp up. At the middle school, we don't typically run one sport all year round. We want students to try different things and develop different skills, different work, different body muscle groups and things like that. So it's better for them in middle school to try multiple things.
Thank you, Jordan. Couple parents asked for the slide deck. I put the feedback form in the chat. Please complete the feedback form if you want me to email you the slide deck. Otherwise, you can visit the resource page from my email that I sent you the Zoom link so that you can see it on the website. But if you want me to email it to you, I need you to complete the feedback form. Also, if you are done with the presentation, you're free to leave whenever you want. We're going to take another 5 minutes and answer some of the questions from the registration link that may not have been addressed. But otherwise, I believe I've answered all the questions asked you, Jordan, all the
Yep.
questions that are in the chat. If I missed one, go ahead and enter it while I'm asking some of these other questions. So one of the questions in the registration form was, if can the child drop a sport if it conflicts with other school clubs, or if he or she loses interest in that sport, and would that reflect on their transcript?
Good question. It would not reflect on a transcript if they dropped this sport. What I will tell you is that depending on when your student drops the sport, you may not be able to get a full refund or a refund at all. So the further you go into the season, the more games you participate in, the more practices you participate in, the less the refund becomes. That's really the only difference. I would say that I would really encourage a student to talk to their coach before they decide to leave a program to make sure that it doesn't work. But there's no transcript implication other than in final forms, it's noted that the student dropped, but that doesn't go in a transcript.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Uh, we've already talked about which clubs and sports meet on what days. Can you talk a little bit about the schedule? How to sign up for the activity bus and transportation for activity bus?
Yeah, so I'm just going to navigate there because I think it's helpful. If we go to Associated Student Body here, and I'm going to select Pine Lake again. And then this blue button on the right side, activity bus schedule. So what's really important is, and it looks like they haven't updated it for this year, but in this area, based on the middle school you go to, that will tell you which bus. So if I start at Cougar Mountain, I will see Route 23. That's actually a shuttle. And so it arrives at Issaquah High School and leaves Issaquah High School, but it stops at Cougar Mountain Middle School, at Cougar Ridge Elementary, and then at Lakemont Boulevard. There's also a route map, so you can see based on the school where it stops. And then they also have a Route 26 that comes to Cougar Mountain and then commutes throughout, and then it leaves. So what's really important, I know this one is confusing for staff sometimes even, arrive is when the bus will absolutely get to the school, and the depart is the latest time that they'll leave the school. So I would encourage your student to be there when the bus arrives, not when it's going to depart, so that they can make sure that they catch it on time.
Thank you, Jordan. And
Mhm.
the parent who had asked about the clubs, like focusing on just soccer throughout the year, confirming yes. When Jordan was saying that you can look for a local club, he's talking about a non-school club. So it's a club outside the school that would do year-round soccer.
Yep, exactly.
Jordan, a lot of parents are wondering if their children don't really have skill, like certain skills because they weren't in sports in outside
Mhm.
in their previous school. I think this is about not being in wrestling or golf in middle school. Middle schools in Issaquah School District don't have golf either. But let's
Mhm.
say not been in wrestling in middle school, but they're interested in wrestling in high school. Um, is that, are there developmental programs or teams? So they're just concerned, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I would say is two things. The first piece is that for our no cut sports, so wrestling in high school, no one gets cut. They are programs that are intentional about developing students from whatever level they're at. So they'll take kids that are new to wrestling or kids who have been wrestling for a long time. Our cut sports are where it's really important for students to have some level of previous experience or development. However, I would encourage a parent whose student is new to a sport to reach out to the coach of the team and ask them and say, my student has either no or limited experience in volleyball. Can you help guide me on how they can grow in their skills, how they can practice more? Are there local camps, opportunities? And our coaches are really good about helping direct families to where they can gain more skills and develop because they want to help all kids develop and grow, whether that's on the team or connecting them to a local training or different type of program. So that would be my suggestion.
Perfect. Thank you. This question is, if my child chooses an instrument, band, or orchestra, can he still join the choir club after school? And I wonder if we need to talk about being how some clubs are based on the classes you take.
Sure.
So I'm wondering
Yeah,
about.
good. That's great. So some of our clubs are tied to our classes that we offer. So band typically has a class, and then also they may have a club associated with that too. The biggest, there's not an umbrella rule for this. So it's all case by case. And the best thing to do is to ask the advisor of the choir club, what is the schedule, and then talk to the band teacher about what that schedule is. And they're really experienced and prepared to have these conversations and to guide and counsel families. So it's important. If you ask them, they will be very open with you about what schedules work and what schedules don't work. But it's very dependent on each program because they don't all meet the same time year to year. So I'd say ask the band teacher, ask the choir club person, and really an easy way to connect with them if you're at the middle school, your principal or assistant principal would be happy to help connect you to the people who run the choir club and to the teacher who teaches band.
Thank you so much. And final question, when will student families who are interested in their children joining clubs at the middle school, when will the club's schedules be posted for the middle school level? A
Yeah,
parent
that's
is interested in robotics club at Issaquah Middle, for example.
okay. So the timing varies. So what's important, school gets started first, then the club advisors start to get prepared and meet. And so you should look for those schedules in late September or October for clubs. However, when you go to your school to to get your schedule or to do an orientation, that's a great time to ask your assistant principal or your principal about the club start times because our middle schools have less clubs. It's a lot easier for the staff there to help connect families. The athletic secretary or the bookkeeper can also help with that. But I would encourage you to ask your assistant principal at your middle school the timeline of clubs, because each school, it might be a little different on when they notify you about that information. But they're a great starting point for all that.
And final one, since it is 8:03, I just wanted to address something. A parent said JSA is going to be canceled in the future. Will that be updated? And yes, I think we just missed it because we made this in June and the cancellation. Jordan, my daughter's in JSA also, and I got an email saying JSA is, the organization is shut down, and that the advisors for the students in the different JSAs throughout this region are meeting to talk about what they want to do about that. So the parent asking the question about JSA, just note that the student leaders, because it's a civics engagement club, are looking to see how they, because remember, we can always create our own clubs, how they can get together and create a civics engagement club similar to JSA, not JSA anymore, but the kids who are in JSA and now all of a sudden have lost that are addressing it. So that is a great example on how students at the school can create their own club and create programs that they are interested in, and how that really is very supportive of our students, showing that it's all about their interest in these sports and so forth.
Yeah.
So at this time, Jordan, thank you so much. We had talked about creating a Q&A, and it feels like we have a Q&A already recorded on our session. So I'm going to stop the recording at this time.